In a small town at the edge of the forest, there lived a young man named Daniel. Daniel had strong hands, a sharp mind, and one enormous dream: to become the finest blacksmith in the region, known and respected by everyone. But Daniel had one serious flaw. He believed greatness should arrive quickly. Some days he worked with incredible energy, staying at the forge for hours, hammering furiously, convinced today was finally the day everything would change. Other days, when his work looked no different than before, he grew frustrated and disappeared for a week, telling himself he would return when he felt ready. One huge effort, then silence. Then another huge effort, then silence again. Daniel could not understand why, no matter how hard he pushed on his best days, his skill never seemed to grow the way he hoped. One afternoon, Daniel traveled to a neighboring village to sell some tools, and there he met an old blacksmith named Elias. Elias was known throughout the region for one simple reason: his blades never broke. Farmers, soldiers, and travelers came from far away just to own one. Amazed, Daniel asked if he could become his apprentice. Elias studied him for a long moment and finally said, "Come back tomorrow morning. Bring nothing but your hands." The next morning, Daniel arrived at the forge before sunrise. Elias placed 2 blades on the table in front of him. They looked almost exactly the same length, the same shine, the same sharp edge. "Tell me which one is stronger," Elias said. Daniel studied them closely but couldn't tell any difference. Elias picked up the first blade. This one was made by a young smith in a single day. He wanted to finish quickly, so he heated the metal once and struck it hard and fast for hours, shaping it before it ever had time to properly cool. Then he picked up the second blade. "This one took me 3 weeks, a few careful strikes each morning, then rest. Heat, strike gently, cool, rest again, slowly, patiently, every single day." Daniel frowned. "But they look identical." Elias only smiled and set the first blade across 2 wooden blocks. With a single firm strike of his hammer, it snapped cleanly in half. He set the second blade the same way and struck it just as hard. It bent and held. "Metal doesn't care how much you want it to be strong today," Elias said quietly. "It only remembers how many times and how patiently you were willing to return to it." Daniel stared at the broken blade on the floor. In that moment, he understood something uncomfortable. He had been trying to forge his own life exactly like that first blade. Powerful bursts of effort, rushed and impatient, followed by long stretches of nothing at all. He wanted to look strong quickly without ever doing the quiet, boring, repeated work that actually makes something strong. "How do I fix this?" Daniel asked. Elias handed him a hammer. "You show up tomorrow and the day after that, not because you feel inspired, because that is what the work requires." From that day forward, Daniel made a quiet decision. He would stop waiting for the days he felt motivated. He would show up to the forge every single morning, whether he felt like it or not, and do the small, unglamorous work in front of him. At first, it was difficult. Old habits pulled at him. Some mornings he wanted to skip a day, just this once. But every time doubt crept in, he remembered the sound of that first blade snapping in half. Slowly, without any dramatic turning point, without a single perfect day, Daniel changed. He arrived early. He practiced the same basic strikes long after they stopped feeling exciting. He let his work rest properly instead of rushing it to look finished. Months passed, then years. Nobody could name the exact day it happened because there wasn't one. But little by little, Daniel's blades began holding their edge longer than his neighbors. His hands grew steady. His reputation grew quietly, the same way his skill had, one unremarkable day at a time. Eventually, travelers began asking for Daniel's work by name, the same way they once asked for Elias's. When a young apprentice once asked him how he'd gotten so good, Daniel simply said, "I just kept showing up on the mornings. It didn't feel like it mattered." Years later, Daniel, now an old master himself, noticed a restless young apprentice pacing near his forge, frustrated that a single afternoon of practice hadn't made him good enough yet. Daniel recognized that look immediately. He placed two blades on the table in front of the boy, one gleaming and freshly rushed, one plain, patient, and quietly strong. "Tell me," Daniel said, "which one do you think will still be here in 10 years? This is the truth most people never want to hear. Success is rarely built in one dramatic moment. It is built the same way a blade is, through hundreds of small, unremarkable strikes that nobody applauds and nobody sees. We admire the finished sword. We rarely think about the 1,000th quiet morning that made it unbreakable. A missed opportunity can sometimes come back around. A bad month can be recovered. But a habit you never built cannot be borrowed from anyone else, and it cannot be rushed into existence overnight. Most people wait for a burst of motivation before they start. They want the perfect version of effort, fully inspired, fully certain, fully ready. But that version of effort almost never arrives, and even when it does, it rarely lasts past a single day. The people who build something lasting are not always the most talented, and they are not always the most motivated. They are simply the ones willing to return to the same unglamorous work again and again, long after it stopped feeling exciting. To me, this story is a reminder that consistency always beats intensity in the long run. One incredible day of effort feels good, but on its own, it rarely changes anything. It's the ordinary Tuesday you show up anyway, tired, unmotivated, completely unnoticed, that actually shapes your future. Take one small, honest action today, repeat it tomorrow, and the day after that. You won't feel the difference this week or even this month, but give it a few years and you'll barely recognize how far 1,000 quiet mornings can carry you. Like, subscribe, share.